Good morning, Nebraska fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. It is Monday morning, another Victory Monday as Nebraska beat Rutgers back on Friday. I'm joined here with our normal co-host, Danny Gillette of thegreatcornholio.org. Danny, it's another Victory Monday. We're here for our Monday morning takeaways, but how you doing this Monday?
I'll tell you what, I can get used to this Victory Monday thing. I have to say it's not too bad. It's not too bad, and I think I'm still really happy about Friday's win. It was a gritty win, but I'm happy about it nonetheless.
Yeah, a lot of people. That was one thing I want to talk about. It's interesting. We did our reaction shows on Saturday, and you kind of talked about this a little bit. But a lot of Nebraska fans are kind of down on this win. Saying that the Nebraska really didn't play well, and that it's kind of more of a sign that the team still isn't kind of where it needs to be. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? How much of that have you seen? In the Twitter sphere and Facebook and all that?
The '90s aren't coming back. Tom Osborne is not walking through that door. We don't have Jason Peter and you know all these old time guys back from the '90s. The '90s are done. The '90s are gone. There will be no more dominant black shirts for the foreseeable future due to the way that college football is set up nowadays. And a win is a win. I don't care. A win is a win. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can't win with the ones that are complaining about the win on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, we won 3 games last year, so I mean, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth at all. And Nebraska, I mean, yeah, they started poorly. They should have won that game. It shouldn't have been a 14-13 win. Obviously, they got off to a really poor start, but they rallied from a 13-0 victory and found a way. And that's something that Nebraska just hasn't been able to do. Teams with less talent have been beating the Huskers for years, and part of the reason is just not finding a way to execute in key moments. And they found a way to do that. The defense really stepped up outside of that first drive. I mean, they were dominant. So I mean, I don't know how people are looking at the defense. And I know people are saying, "Oh, Rutgers didn't have their starting quarterback and blah 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 blah." I mean, I get that. That's all valid point. And Nebraska's going to get tested this week, but you can only play the opponent in front of you. And Nebraska did what it needed to do. And after 3 conference games, we're sitting tied for first place in the Big Ten West with Purdue and Illinois, and Minnesota's, right there, 1-1. So I mean, there's been kind of a 4 teams with 1 loss, but we're right where we need to be. I mean, they as I've heard other coaches say they don't keep track of style points on the scoreboard. So when they do, we can start worrying about that. Until then, let's just worry about having more points on the board than the other team. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous that people are complaining about a win. Did we look the best? No. Did we win? Yes. Did we make adjustments in the second half, particularly on defense? Yeah, we did. And I thought they made really, really solid adjustments. And, even on offense, I thought the play calling, opened up a little bit. And that was good to see as well. So I'm not looking for, blowout wins. I'm not looking for statement wins or any of that crap. I'm looking for wins. One win, 2 wins in a row, 1 win on Friday. And it's crazy that just to think, you kind of brought it up just a little bit there, that we've won 2 games in this month alone. We won 3 games all last season. So, I mean, I think things are trending in the right direction. And, you know, I'm happy with this win. I'm happy with this win. Like we talked about on Saturday, Greg Schiano teams are always tough and they're always prepared to give you a good game, and that's exactly what they did. And I'm happy we were able to come out on the winning end of it.
Yeah, any Big Ten win on the road is a good win. I don't think that there's any team in this conference that's just a pushover. Rutgers has recruited some talented players, especially on defense, and Greg Schiano is a really good defensive coach, and he made it tough on Nebraska. Those guys, they're looking to get to a bowl game too, and this was a really important game, for them in that regard. So, for Nebraska to go on the road and beat a team at their place in a sold out, stadium in a game that they really needed to win. I mean, I think that that's a big deal. We're obviously going to learn a lot about Nebraska on Saturday. I don't know if you've seen, the line that's come out. It looks like, some of it's favoring Purdue by 13.5 points, which seems a little, I don't know, it seems a little heavy to me. I was expecting a little over a touchdown, not quite 13.5
That's what
points,
I
but
thought, and I was wondering if I was missing something. But I mean, Purdue's good. That's not to take away from them, but I think the line, one website dropped the line to 11.5, but that still seems a bit high to me.
Yeah, I was thinking somewhere like 7 to like 9, but 10 points seems a little. But I don't know. I mean, I think Michigan's like almost a 10-point favorite over Penn State, and those teams are both in the top 10. So I guess it sort of makes sense. And Purdue, I mean, say what you will about them, they beat Minnesota 2 weeks ago, and then last week on Saturday they beat a pretty good Maryland team. I know a lot of people, don't give Maryland a lot of respect, but they played Michigan really tight, and they beat the doors off of Michigan State. So I think Maryland's a little better than people think, and Purdue went up there and beat them on the road. So this is a really tough team, and Aiden O'Connell is kind of the guy that gets talked about a lot, but this is a really good defense. They get 2 sacks per game, and I'm very concerned about how the offensive line is going to hold up, because it did not hold up very well against Rutgers on Friday.
And like I wrote on Saturday, at this point, the offensive line is what it is. I mean, and now it's just about trying to game plan most effectively so that your quarterback doesn't get killed under center, and that you minimize the strengths of Purdue. And I think this defense is not the strongest, but they do have some players. I remember Saturday we talked about the safeties a little bit last week. I'm going to see if I can pull up their statistics here, but they have some good players defensively, and this offensive line is, a troublesome spot. Excuse me, a troublesome spot for this program, and I don't really see it getting any better.
Yeah, it's going to be if you look at like the pro football grades, pro football focus grades, I mean, Turner Corcoran gave up 10 pressures. He literally had like a 0 pass blocking grade. So I mean, 10 pressures in one game is a lot of pressures to give up to. And Hunter Anthony got the start play. I believe he started. He played most of the snaps. Like, I'm not going to say 100% he started, but looked like that way off the snap count. So a little bit of a change there with him playing more than Bryce Benhart. But man, I mean, it's brutal. I mean, 10. I just it's like maybe they should consider playing Brant Banks. I mean, he's one guy we didn't. He actually played okay in that Indiana game, because man, 10 pressures. Holy cow! I feel like I could give up only 10 pressures if I went out there and started in a college game.
And Hunter Anthony may have started, but he may have came in, but he didn't really make that much of a difference, to be honest, because I saw a couple times.
He got beat bad.
Yeah, he got beat bad off the edge, and
not as bad as Corcoran, but still pretty bad.
No, still pretty bad. Rutgers did a nice job of bringing pressure off the edge, and if I'm Purdue this week, I'm looking at that and saying there's an area where we can exploit. Coming off the edge, because right now our edge linemen, Anthony, Corcoran, they're not doing the job, and the edge is a good place to start if you want to bring pressure, because the quarterback often doesn't see it or feels it late versus a straight rush up the middle. And so if I'm Purdue, I'm looking to feast off of Anthony and Corcoran.
Yeah, and they've been one of the better pass rushing teams, in the Big Ten. They do give up 230 yards a game passing, like we said. The running, I think the running game is going to be huge. Purdue does not give up a whole lot. They're only giving up 2.9 yards per carry. But, I've said this just repeatedly. I do think the offensive line, as bad as they are a little better run blocking. It's just, I think, a little bit easier if you're not as good of an athlete to run block. And so I really think they've got to get Anthony Grant going in this game, or I just don't think they're going to have a chance. I don't see Nebraska winning this game and with Anthony Grant getting like 45 rushing yards like he did against Rutgers. If Purdue does that against Nebraska, then Purdue probably is going to win this game by like 13.
Yeah, and Anthony Grant really struggled on Friday night, but that wasn't all his fault. He was just trying to make things happen out of the backfield. And then I remember there was a stretch where Mark Whipple likes to give up on the run sometimes, and we went through one of those stretches on Friday night, and it was just kind of a head scratcher. But I'd love to see Trey Palmer a little bit more in the running game, kind of those option plays or plays that Palmer can bounce to the outside if need be, just something to kind of spark the rushing attack, and if possible run away from the line, not run like into the line, because right now they're struggling. They do obviously, like you said, they do perform a little bit better in the run, but honestly, and I know I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it probably the rest of the season, the line really scares me. If the line plays like they did on Friday, then Casey Thompson won't be able to get anything going. The running game won't be able to get anything going, and the Purdue defensive line will have a feast.
Yeah, I think that's, like I said, the biggest key is going to be getting Anthony Grant going. I don't think he played poorly on Friday night. He just didn't have a whole lot of room. He did have that big hit against the Rutgers guy, which I think kind of swung the pendulum a little bit towards Nebraska,
That
and they
was
were able to,
crazy. That was
yeah,
a hit.
that was a big hit. But looking, I guess, just really quickly at the Big Ten race, coming into this matchup, because I think this is really going to be a defining moment for Nebraska as to whether they actually have a shot at winning the Big Ten West or not. We've all talked about it, and they're sitting right there. But the next two games, I think, are really going to define, going into November, whether Nebraska has a legitimate chance to win this division or whether it's just to, make a bowl game, if that's the goal. So Purdue is sitting there. They're tied for the lead. Minnesota, like we said, has one loss, is also right there. Illinois is coming to Nebraska after the bye week. So, Nebraska really has an opportunity, if they win these next two games, to kind of grab a foothold, of this division. So are you looking at Saturdays as sort of like, a measuring stick game for this Nebraska team? Or what do you feel about, their chances, in the Big Ten West? Are they a legitimate contender, or are they a pretender that's about, to get exposed in this race, this weekend and beyond?
Well, I think, when you look at the Big Ten West, you look at teams like Iowa, and they just played Illinois this weekend, if my memory serves me correctly. I watched a lot of college football this weekend, and, they're not exactly offensive juggernauts. You look at Illinois, they're not really an they have had games where they've been up and down, but they've managed to get the job done because that's what Brett Bielema teams do. We saw that in the opener last year. And so I do think there's a chance for us to win the Big Ten West, but I think we just got to keep working on our fundamentals, meaning solid play, no penalties, solid offensive play. And so, because when you look at all these teams, they may not have the most high-powered offense, but they're very solid fundamentally, and they can take advantage of mistakes you make. And, I think Nebraska does have a good shot at winning the Big Ten West. And I think Purdue is certainly a game where Nebraska can make a statement. I do think, is this a must-win game for them to win the Big Ten West? No, only because they have Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin and Iowa still on the schedule. So there are opportunities for them to make up ground, but I would like to see them win against Purdue and kind of further strengthen their stranglehold in the battle for the top of the West.
Yeah, I just think it would be, Purdue's going to be one of those teams that's probably going to be in the mix if they beat Nebraska. We'll see. But, they do have the quarterback in Aiden O'Connell that everybody's talked about, and they've been pretty good. I think their only loss is to Penn State at this point in the first game of the season, which was a game that they very easily could have won. A lot of people ripped, Jeff Brom. I think he passed the ball late in that game, and Penn State kind of came back and won it. So, that shows you right there how tough it is to go win at Purdue. Penn State needed, a game-winning drive, and Sean Clifford didn't play great. He turned the football over that day, but found a way, at the end of that one. And that's what Nebraska's going to have to do. They're going to have to, hang around, hope that they have a chance in the fourth quarter, and just, find a way. Purdue can make some mistakes, though. Aiden O'Connell's a really good quarterback, but, he has, had some interceptions this year, and I think that's going to be a key factor for Nebraska. But, it's not going to be Noah Vedral and Evan Simon, throwing the football this week. So the secondary's got to play better. Hopefully Quentin Newsome, his injury status is going to be a big thing to monitor. Luke Reimer's another guy that I believe left the game late Saturday. I'm not sure if he returned, so that's going to be another thing to monitor, because he's played pretty well the last 2 weeks, in coverage. I'm not sure what the difference has been, in his game. Maybe he just got healthier. Maybe that's it with some of these guys getting healthy. But, certain players like, and Feast had his moments. He's never going to put together a dominant game for 4 quarters, but I think he had 2 or 3 pressures, had a sack on Friday. Ty Robinson played pretty well. O'Shawn Mathis had a pressure and a sack. So, Garrett Nelson, I thought played really well. I mean, 2 sacks, tackle, and 1.5 tackles for loss, hurries all over the place. So he's been one of the kind of change makers on this defense. But this Purdue team, they've got they can run the football. They've got nice weapons. A tight end that worries me. But and all their receivers. So I'm really interested. This is going to be a big test. For Bill Bush. We've all been talking up Bill Bush, and he's delivered with 2 second half shutouts in a row. But I wouldn't expect a third. But I don't think you need to shut out Purdue in the second half to win the game, obviously. But this is going to be a big test for Bill Bush.
This is going to be a big test for Bill Bush, and it's going to show what type of depth Nebraska has, because we've been really high on players like, for example, Malcolm Hartzog, and he's played really well. But I think this game is going to give him an additional test to see what he can do in the secondary. I mean, I think he's been one of their biggest and most pleasant surprises in the secondary, and I feel as the secondary unit as a whole needs to come ready to play. I mean, they have the past couple of games, but I think Purdue is a bit of a different animal than Rutgers and even Indiana.
Yeah, I think, and you touched on it, Purdue, one of the biggest things I think is going to be, Mark Whipple sticking with the run, because that's, you look at Maryland over the weekend, they've got Hemby's a pretty good running back, and they just didn't stick with it very much. And I did forget that Purdue lost at Syracuse. Did Syracuse win this weekend? Do you know? Are they still undefeated?
I can look that up, but I'm not sure.
I just remembered I was watching game day and they were still undefeated. So it's not like it's Nebraska relevant, but just kind of curious. But that's their other loss. So their 2 losses have been so far to undefeated teams. Pending Syracuse last week, and Jeff Brom. I really like what he's done there, and they've got some talented backs. But Charlie Jones, we talked about him on Saturday on the show, is going to be a guy you're going to have to watch. But even against Maryland, they did not run the ball effectively. They had basically like 50 yards rushing against Maryland, but found a way to win. Payne Durham is the tight end I was talking about, 7 catches, 109 yards last week. So, definitely going to need Luke Reimer and going to need some of those guys to step up. But the biggest thing, I mean, it's the pass rush. That's what's going to have to, get Nebraska through these games. And that's really the only thing, that I can look at this defense that I feel really good about in terms of, trying to slow down any league quarterback. I like Malcolm Hartzog. He made some good plays in coverage, but I don't think he's like a lockdown corner by any sense of the word. So I don't know. This will be a big test for our defense. I think Aiden O'Connell is definitely the best passing quarterback we've faced, at least outside, maybe Dylan Gabriel, but I think he's probably the best.
Syracuse had a bye week this week, and they're playing North Carolina State this week, so that's going to be a really good game. I believe NC State is ranked 15th, and Syracuse is ranked 18th. So that is going to be a fun game on Saturday. But yeah, and I think if O'Shawn Mathis can keep playing the way he has been, that would be huge for Nebraska. He's really been a lot more active in getting into the backfield, and I know his statistics don't necessarily show it, but those pressures do mean something. And had he not tipped the pass at the end of Friday's game, that probably would have been a pass interference against Nebraska. So he's been really active both with his hands and his ability to generate a pass rush. And it's great to see, because we were worried about his struggles at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I'd still like to see him step up a little bit more and take his game to another level. But he has been productive and came up with a really huge play there Friday night. But all those guys are going to step. Nelson, Caleb Tanner, and O'Shawn Mathis are really going to have to deliver on Saturday, as well as Ty Robinson, who's played pretty well the past couple of weeks. Because Rutgers isn't an offensive juggernaut. They've in 3 Big Ten games, they've scored 10 points, 10 points, and 13 points. So, I mean, it's not like holding Rutgers under 20 was some type of grand achievement. But if they do that to Purdue, that will be a big achievement. But I think they've really got to focus on, trying to play complementary football. I don't think it's going to be a good formula. I don't think it's ever going to – I don't think it's a great formula if Casey Thompson's ever throwing the ball more than 40 times. I think if he throws it more than 40 times, Nebraska's probably losing the game. I mean, that's just how I feel based off the offensive line. And Casey gets a little loose with the ball. I mean, let's just be honest with it. I love the kid. He's a warrior, but if he throws it 40 times, he's probably going to throw at least one pick. And that's how you lose road games.
Absolutely. And, it's just a matter of consistency and not trying to go for the big play every single time. One of the things that I really liked on Friday was getting Marcus Washington more involved within the offense, because we know that Trey Palmer is a dynamic player, and we know that Trey Palmer can, really be that X factor and that catalyst. But I was happy to see Marcus Washington, get some time and get some throws. He had 4 receptions for 53 yards and averaged 13.3 yards per reception. And, that's the key of having a good offense, is having that, number one X factor, but also having complementary players that can help, move the chains in the event that your top target is not open.
Yeah, and I've really been happy with Travis Folkluck. I mean, I said it before the year. I predicted him to have like over 500 yards, before the season, and that prediction, I haven't checked on his numbers, so that but might not get there with his injury. But yeah, I totally agree. I feel like there's kind of some chemistry there. Even Oliver Martin, I've ripped on him, but he's made a couple of big receptions the past couple of weeks. The question I was just mentioned, I brought up with because Gabe Urban didn't play on Saturday or Friday night, excuse me. At least we didn't see him. We saw Yant take, some extra carries, and he had a couple nice runs. But where is Ramir Johnson? What happened? Is he just like redshirting? Is he refusing to play? Like, I don't understand how, Mark Whipple talked him up and was like, oh, we're going to use this guy like Brian Westbrook. And then he's never like seen the field. I don't think he's touched the ball this year. It's just perplexing. I really don't. I feel like Nebraska could use him in this offense. I mean, I just feel like, I know Anthony Grant is a okay pass catcher, but he's not a natural pass catcher, if you know what I mean. Like, it looks like, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like they're missing something in their offense, throwing to the running backs. And I just don't get why. I get running the ball with Grant, but I don't understand why they've never tried to utilize Ramir Johnson at all.
I don't want to speculate, but I to be honest with you, that makes no sense to me either. I mean, because I remember, like you said, writing articles where Mark Whipple said he meaning Johnson would take on more of the duck role, and there would be specific plays and packages within the offense for him. And so far, he hasn't even gotten one snap that I've seen. That's not true. I think he got a snap on special teams against Northwestern,
Yeah.
but I mean, no real impactful offensive snaps. So it's really interesting to see him kind of fade out of the picture. I mean, I would like to see him play, but it's not as if his absence is making us suffer in production, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the running game is suffering, but I mean, I feel like he could provide. I feel like he could provide some easier completions for Thompson. I just don't. I don't. I mean, when Anthony Grant catches the ball, it's like a full. He's always a full steam ahead, but he's not very good at making people miss after he catches the ball. I don't know if you've noticed that, but he doesn't seem to do much with it after he catches it. So I don't. I mean, I feel like that's a skill set to keep working on, but Ramir, I feel like you could run those little quick outs, those option routes, like those Z routes. And I feel like there's just a whole part of especially when you're struggling to protect, chip and let him swing out and dump it, and I don't know, just, I feel like Nebraska has, and there could be something going on behind the scenes, or maybe he's, doesn't want to play this year and wants to keep his red shirt and transfer, that's just speculation. I have no idea. It's just been weird. And the Omar Manning thing is weird too. And he was out there on Friday night for like one play and then was back off the field. So I have no idea like what's going on with those guys, but it's just strange because, in July and August, Ramir and Omar Manning were going to be like two of the focal points of the offense, and they haven't been anywhere. And it hasn't hurt him in the passing game. I don't think Omar Manning's been, that missed, especially since he's been hurt. But it would have been nice to have, another physical kind of presence out there, because Alontae Brown just hasn't really, he's made a few plays, but hasn't been consistent.
Well, I think a lot of the preseason hype surrounding Ramir and Omar hinged on the fact that Nebraska didn't really know what they were going to get with Trey Palmer and guys like Marcus Washington and, someone like AJ Allen when he was healthy. And so I think once they became established pieces of the offense, that kind of phased out some guys. I'm not going to speculate about, problems behind the scenes or anything like that, but I could see where the emergence of some of these players, where they've established full roles in this offense and clear roles in this offense, have led to some other guys being phased out.
Yeah, I get it. I just think, especially at running back, it's just weird because nobody has the same skill set that Ramir does to me, especially like Gabe Irvin and Yant don't catch the ball. I don't think, I mean, Grant is okay. He's serviceable, but, I still think they're missing the boat there, but, it is what it is. The biggest thing is that they've got to get Anthony Grant going. I think that's the one, and I don't know how they're going to do it against this Purdue front. That's why, they pay Mark Whipple, whatever he gets paid, $600,000 or whatever it is, to figure out how to manufacture a running game against this Purdue team. And I do think it's important, even if the running game isn't working that well. I think Anthony Grant needs 20 carries in this game. I don't care if it's for like 60 yards. You've got to give this defense as much time on the sideline as possible. I mean, if you look at the Rutgers game, it was almost exactly kind of like we said going in that Greg Schiano was going to do. He likes to play pro-style games, and I think Nebraska had 66 plays and Rutgers had 68, and that's exactly the kind of game Nebraska needs to play on Saturday. Now, will they do it? I'm not sure because, Mickey doesn't want to mess around with Whipple's play calling, and I respect that, but at the same time, it's like, dude, we don't have to run. Like, we're not the high-octane offense, and if things aren't going well, just at some point, even at the very least, if you're like, hey, we're going to give the defense 2 minutes to breathe before we punt, that type of situation. Because, I mean, I do like the Purdue offense, but I don't think this is a team that's going to score like 50. I mean, I think our defense can hang in there, as long as we're not, killing ourselves on offense with turnovers and, with those kind of, 20-second type possessions. I just don't think we can have that against Purdue on Saturday night.
And I think that totally just lost my train of thought here. Let me see if I can get it back. I think that this offense, one of the big things that I talked about, I was in a Twitter space on Saturday, and I said, if I'm Mickey and if I'm in my weekly meeting with Mark Whipple, I see about getting Casey Thompson more plays out of the pocket, whether they be rollout plays or whether they be, design runs of some sort or just stuff where Casey doesn't have to stand in the pocket and he can kind of take his time and make throws because that helps extend drives as well. I mean, we saw him run a little bit, Thompson, during the course of the game on Friday, but he's not a natural running quarterback. For the sake of the offensive line and for the sake of keeping drives alive, I would love to see Casey have more plays out of the pocket, not like bootlegs all the time, but just plays that, he can kind of scramble a little bit, make his reads, and have time to make his reads because when he gets time, he is an extremely accurate quarterback.
Yeah, and I think one thing that makes it harder to do that, with the rollouts and stuff with Nebraska is that they never snap it under center. I mean, almost ever. We saw that they tried to snap it under center to take a knee and almost lost it. That would have been the worst loss in one of the worst losses in college football history, by the way. I mean, literally to fumble the ball, and because Rutgers was like basically almost in field goal range. But at any rate, beyond all that, because a lot of times, when you see the rollouts and stuff and the bootlegs, it's off of play action. It's off a play action fake, and then the guy hits the. So when you run out of a spread offense, I feel like it makes it harder because the only the only action that you really have is like the fake zone read, and then the guy's cutting across your face. And the thing about that is that your offensive line kind of almost has to block down or look like they're blocking down. So, I mean, they can do that, but they're going to have to the moving the quarterback and bootlegging and stuff doesn't work very well if you don't run the ball effectively. If you run the ball, then some of those play fakes work, but if you don't, then you just end up getting blitzed even harder. So I really feel like Anthony Grant and this offensive line, they have to find a way to run the ball. And, Whipple's got to stick to it. And whether it's whether it's bringing in Logan Smothers and Chuba Purdy to give you an extra blocker sometimes. I mean, who cares? I would definitely not mind seeing, I know Scott's gone, but, there are reasons why, the quarterback run game, is a much bigger part of college football than it was like 20 years ago when Scott was playing. I mean, when Scott was playing, there were teams like Nebraska that did, the spread options and stuff, but you didn't have any of these spread type systems where you had like a dual threat quarterback like you have now, where almost every team has a quarterback run game in some way, shape, or form. I mean, you look at, 14 teams in the Big Ten, almost every team has a quarterback who can run the football if needed. So it's a very different game, and it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I do think it wouldn't be bad to get some kind of more things instead of always just dropping straight out of shotgun. But at the same time, that's kind of the Mark Whipple offense, it seems.
Yeah, and I don't think he runs a bad offense. Is he frustrating at times? Sure, absolutely, yes. But I mean, I think,
And that's just, there's
yeah,
not very many teams that snap under center. Not to
yeah.
interrupt you, but it's
No,
not just a
no,
Nebraska thing.
that's a good
Michigan
point.
barely does it, and they run the Jim Harbaugh offense, and their quarterback is under center like 10 or 15 times a game. That's it.
And it is kind of annoying that they don't run under center, but I mean, it works. It works, and we saw particularly in the second half, you know, it helped Thompson buy time and find Trey Palmer for that beautiful deep touchdown pass, and so it's not like it's a bad way to go. I just think sometimes it would be more effective to, at least try to go under center as long as you establish the run game and work on those rollout plays.
Yeah, it's interesting. Different, you talk to different coaches, and what it means for the quarterback, because some coaches will say that actually putting your quarterback in a shotgun, makes it makes it easier for him to see the rush because he's watching it the whole time, as opposed to doing your fake and then kind of coming back. So I don't know, different. Some coaches like it, some coaches don't, but it's not going anywhere. I mean, that's just where college football is. Everybody's in the shotgun anymore. So
I can buy that for us too, because Thompson needs to see where the rush is coming from, or else he's gonna have his head taken off. So I could definitely buy that for us, especially. But I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see if they can play a consistent offensive game throughout the entirety of Saturday against Purdue. Because if they don't, that plays right into Purdue's hands.
So yeah, and one thing, I've talked about this game and how important it is, and I kind of want to, talk, make this a little bit about Mickey Joseph in the coaching search and kind of swing it back, because I saw some interesting things that I wanted to bring up, and one was, it was just a tweet someone put out, but they were talking about how Kansas lost and Iowa State lost and Kentucky lost. So, the tweet was basically Mark Stoops and Campbell and Leopold are trending down, and Mickey's trending up. And so I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of flaws in that kind of thinking. Like, so are you saying that Mark Stoops has to win 9 games this season? I just don't understand that thinking. Like, we're not picking a coach based off of just a few results here or there. Like, either you know what I mean? I feel like we don't want Mark Stoops based on how, like the last 6 games go. I mean, the guy can coach. That's my opinion. And so it's just, I don't know. I do think that Mickey is trending in the right direction. I don't think we've heard as much stuff about the coaching search, but I think that was all rumors anyway. I don't think that like Dave Aranda and Lance Leopold and Matt Campbell are like calling Trev Alberts on Monday to check in and be like, hey, what's going on? Oh, I lost,
They have better things to do at this time of year.
Yeah, there isn't. I mean, right now, I don't think there really is a coaching search. I mean, I think they're looking at candidates and talking to people, but literally every person that's been talked about has a job right now, except, Urban Meyer, who nothing happened there. He's not a realistic candidate. So, but I don't know. What do you think about these people who are saying like judging these coaching candidates based just off this year's record? That seems a little erroneous to me.
It's stupid. I know Twitter's full of hot takes, and I know people.
I didn't want to say that word, but thank you.
I mean, in case for those who haven't watched this before, Chris is the more diplomatic side of things, and he puts everything into perspective. And then you have me over here just absolutely.
Except when I get really pissed off.
If you've watched some of our game day streams, you can see Chris in rare form. Especially that. What was the final game that got Frost and Shenander fired?
Oh, the Georgia Southern.
That's what That's what it was. It was one of those teams. But yeah, no. I'll just call it like it is. It's stupid. It's hot take season, but it's stupid. I do think there is some, credence to the fact in the line of thinking that Mickey is trending upward. But I don't think one loss is gonna, devalue these coaches any. I mean, you know, they're not gonna be the next Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, those, those type of coaches. I mean, they're still good coaches, and I don't think they should be devalued after one bad weekend because let's face it, there's been a lot of this has been a wild college football season, and there's been a lot of questionable losses or tough losses, and it's all part of the fun.
A lot of guys getting fired. It's crazy though on this topic. How insane is this fall for Oklahoma, man? I mean, they beat our doors off like 3 weeks ago, and now I mean, just they lost 49-0, and now all I'm seeing is about how Brent Venables needs to get fired. It's just insane how it's like I don't think he's going to get fired, but man, you can't lose 49-0 to Texas.
Makes me wonder, like how bad our defense actually was if we lost as bad as we did to Oklahoma, and then how much our offense struggled in that game against Oklahoma. But it's tough. I mean,
It shows why you need a backup core. I mean, because they must not have any. I mean, they literally couldn't. They threw for 36 yards. So they just, once Dylan Gabriel got hurt, like it seems like they just have nothing in reserve to be able to run their offense.
We can make a Pee Wee football team look good, though. So, yeah. I mean, so I wasn't surprised at all by Saturday's result. And, it's just Texas, not to go on a college football rant, but Texas always confuses me. Are they back? Are they not back? Like, what's the deal? Like, they have some really good games, but then they always go on this downward slide. That's just so confusing.
It is. I have to say this. I think if Quinn Ewers hadn't gotten hurt, I think they'd be undefeated because I think they would have beat Alabama and probably Texas Tech. But that's the thing. Their only losses to Texas Tech in the Big 12. So, I mean, they really kind of control their own destiny for the Big 12 title. And so it's going to be interesting. I don't think outside Oklahoma State, though, I don't think that anybody in the Big 12, I should say our boy Adrian and the Fighting Wildcats, I mean, they've got one loss. So they're in the top 20 now,
Don't even get me started on that. Half the time Kansas State plays, all the Nebraska boards are like, oh, we told you so.
I know. Just going. I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. I just feel like it's not Adrian Martinez here. I mean, it wasn't all his fault, but a lot of it still was his fault. And things are different in Kansas State, and he's got a better running back and a much better defense. But I mean, they won. I think they beat Iowa State like 13-9 or something. Yeah. Like it wasn't. It was our boy Matt Campbell against our old boy Adrian Martinez, and
some offensive fireworks in that game.
Adrian was trying to do us a favor, and get Matt not looking as good, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know if that helps or doesn't. I guess I'm not really like, I wasn't looking at the Kansas game like, oh, lost to TCU. I don't want Lance Leipold anymore,
Yeah, no, it's stupid. It's stupid to think like that. I mean, honestly, you probably, I wouldn't even, I know it's fun to write about because, it's gets clicks and stuff like that, but I wouldn't even pay attention to any of the stuff until like early November at the earliest, because there's still a lot of pieces to be moved here. Who knows if Nebraska gets on a nice little winning streak and continues that winning streak. We're already on a 2-game winning streak, but maybe a 3 to 4 game winning streak, and we set up nicely in the month of November. Who knows? Because I mean, that month of November is still going to be tough.
And that's, I guess, my original point kind of coming, because I wanted to kind of touch on, like our coaching, I don't know, power rankings or just our coach, our latest thoughts on it. And I do think it's been nice to, get a couple wins, and then we haven't had to talk about this coaching search. And I do think that it's very, Mickey has made this a talking point, and I think he can make it an even bigger talking point by beating Purdue on Saturday. I think if he wins these next 2 games, then I think, he's got a better than 50% chance of being the next permanent head coach, because Nebraska would be sitting there, legitimately, like if you're 4-1 after these next 2 games, it's not like fake first place anymore. You're in real first place with only a few games left. But, so that's what we have to see, because, Mickey did he had Nebraska beat. You're supposed to beat Rutgers and you're supposed to beat Indiana, and to be fair, under Scott Frost, Nebraska couldn't beat anybody. So I mean, those were still big wins and those were still important steps to take. But it's not like you have to go. I feel like Mickey's going to have to beat somebody that Nebraska's not expected to beat in order to really solidify himself for this job, and that means like Minnesota or this game at Purdue or Iowa or somebody like that. But he's going to need kind of like an eye-opening win, because as a coach, you have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and then every once in a while you have to beat teams you're not supposed to. And Nebraska has not done that. Literally, I can't even remember the last time, because Scott Frost didn't do it once. Scott Frost did not do that one time in his entire coaching tenure, and I'm hoping that Mickey can do it on Saturday.
I was going to say that Illinois would probably be the game for me that would be a defining win, because they're ranked 25th now, right?
Yeah, I believe they are. Yep, they are ranked in the top 25 now. And yeah, Chase Brown, their running back, is legit too.
Didn't he destroy us last year?
Probably.
It seems like we bring out the best in every single running back. Thank God Mohammed Ibrahim and I forget the other guy's name from Minnesota. Thank God they're not there anymore. But
Mo Ibrahim is still there, though.
He is still there? Who's the
Yeah. No,
who was the one that left to go to Carolina? I think it was Carolina Panthers.
I can't think of his name.
I can't think of his name, but I'm gonna look him up. And so
yeah, Mo's still there. He's hurt, and he was hurting for the Purdue game. So that's like Minnesota didn't have him there, and they really sucked in terms of running the ball. And so Tanner Morgan ended up throwing like 38 times, and he threw 3 picks, and that's how they lost. So I feel like that's how Nebraska's going to, like, if Nebraska doesn't run the ball effectively, and Casey Thompson throws it like 40 times, it's going to be a very similar type of situation. So hopefully that doesn't happen. We have Anthony Grant, though. They didn't have Mo Ibrahim on that day.
17-year senior Tanner Morgan. He's still
Tanner
there?
Morgan, yeah. He is still there, yep. Yeah, it's crazy how long he's been there, but
I feel like he's been there a while. I mean, even if you look at like Adrian Martinez, he's in his 6th year of football, right?
Let's see. This is his 5th year.
5th year? Yeah. I mean, that's still a lot of football. It must seem like longer to him.
Yeah.
I'll say that much. Okay, so I'm looking at the Minnesota running backs from the game we played in 2019 where we got absolutely destroyed. And it was Mo Ibrahim and then Rodney Smith. That's what it was, Rodney Smith.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm glad Rodney Smith's not there anymore.
But yes, and then Chris Altman-Bell is hurt too. I don't know if he's out for the season but that's another. So Minnesota's kind of been hurt with some injuries, in the Big Ten West race. But yeah, Illinois would be a huge win. They beat Iowa 9-6, I think, and they played both of their quarterbacks, Tommy DeVito and Arthur Sidikowski, a guy who used to play at Rutgers. I don't know if you guys remember him, but
I do, yeah.
So I mean, Illinois, they don't have a great quarterback situation, and not that stopping Chase Brown's going to be easy, especially, but I feel like that's a very winnable game for Nebraska. So I totally feel like they can go 1-1 during this stretch of 2 games, and that's kind of where I feel like Mickey needs to at least do that in order to have a chance in November at winning the job, because you're 4-4. If you lose both of these games, you're 3-5, and I don't see Nebraska winning 3 of those 4 games in November. That's just me.
I mean, I feel like Iowa could potentially be a beatable team because they have a very good defense, but their offense, it's very gross, honestly. I don't know what other way to say it, but it's not a good offense. They do have a solid defense, and that's what wins you games. So, I mean,
they do have a solid defense, and they thrive on mistakes, and basically they've always thrived on Nebraska beating itself in one way or another with a stupid. I mean, and they did last year. I mean, we were kicking Iowa's ass, and I don't even remember what happened. I can't remember if Smothers had a turnover. I think he did.
I want to say a safety. It was a safety in the end zone off of a fumble.
Yeah, and then we just totally fell apart, and I think we had an 11-point lead going into the 4th quarter. So, that against Rutgers, Iowa got, like a couple of pick sixes. So, I mean, that's what they do. They capitalize on that stuff. And, I feel like Casey Thompson, he does throw some interceptions, but he doesn't throw the pick six, the really stupid one. You know what I mean? It seems like a lot of his he kind of wants to go for the hero ball type thing, just for
Well, and the
lack
one
of
thing
a
I'll
better
say
term.
about
But
that, no, the one thing I'll say about that is that he throws it deep enough to where it could almost be considered a punt. So it's not even like he puts Nebraska in bad field position when he throws those type of interceptions. And you never want to throw an interception, but I would much prefer those interceptions versus interception over the middle that's returned 10 yards and we're in Nebraska territory on the way to a potential touchdown.
or like, I know it's not always great to take a sack, but I'd honestly rather take a sack than have your quarterback throw it up for grabs, because a punt is always going to be better than a turnover. I mean, it's just, if there's one stat that determines winning and losing in football games, we know this, it's turnovers more than any other, like by far.
Normally, I would say, yeah, I would want him to take a sack, but if he took a sack every time he versus throwing an interception or throwing the ball up, he'd have like 56 sacks by the end of the game with our line. So I don't know if I'd want that either. Looking at just thinking about it now, because man, he's taken some brutal hits this year behind center, and it's been kind of impressive to see how he's bounced back and still wanted to play.
Yeah, that's why I gave him my game ball on Friday night. He wasn't spectacular, especially in the first half, but just the way that he was able to get poised. I mean, you go on the road, you're down 13-0, you've thrown 2 picks, you're getting lit up almost every time, running for your life. That would have been a very easy situation to fold. You know what I mean? And he didn't do that. He, I thought Whipple did a really good job with the play calling. He got some short passes to Grant, to Travis Vokolek, to Washington. And even though Nebraska didn't get any points in that second quarter, they found a little bit of a rhythm. And then, boom, they come out with that drive in the third quarter and get the big touchdown. And so I thought Casey Thompson, I mean, to go 22 of 36, with that pressure, and to finish that game, going like the last few quarters, without having turnovers and taking care of the ball and doing what he did, I thought that was just showed a lot of courage. And sometimes, being a quarterback, it's not about, you need to have that moxie, right? And I feel like that Casey Thompson is a guy that you want to have, in your foxhole, because, he's a fighter, and he's not going to back down. So I like that about him.
And it's interesting because my college coach used to tell our quarterbacks, if these guys aren't open, you have this read called the gift right here. There's your, check down read, your gift read that you can throw to kind of get out of trouble. And I thought Mark Whipple did a good job of establishing gift reads with Vokolek and Washington early on in the second half. And that allowed for some quick, easy completions, which made Thompson feel good and kept the chains moving. And they didn't try to force anything. They just took what the defense gave them and let Vokolek, with his size, run after the catch, and he was able to get a first down. And same thing with Washington, that allowed him to get into space and go one-on-one with the defender. So those gift reads, I thought, were really smart decisions to open up the second half.
And to get Casey to throw some of it, because he hasn't always thrown a lot of those. So, I think that's maybe a coaching point. Like, hey, the pass rushes, you got to get rid of the football. And Casey, and sometimes I think he needs to keep doing more of that, just to say, hey, like, I could possibly wait for another second or two to try to let something deep get open, but there's some guy here open. I need to get him the football, get some positive yards, and save myself from getting hit. And because he's right too. I mean, he said that he was waiting on the Rutgers pass rush to wear out. I mean, guys will wear out a little bit, if you're rushing 40 times, not getting to the quarterback. But so I think it is on Casey to, and that's got to be a coaching point, is to make sure that he's getting rid of the football very quickly and not always trying to, hold on for that deep ball.
And I also think it was really smart. I noticed a lot of times they called plays for Casey that were in the middle of the field, or maybe not in the middle of the field, but in the front of his vision, so that he was able to see the reads clearly and properly. And, you don't always want to throw it in the middle of the field, but if you're talking about a slant route, I would honestly take my chances with Marcus Washington on a slant route, Trey Palmer on a slant route, just to get, the ball and the play in front of Casey Thompson to where he can be effective.
So we have our comment from Steele. Our own line has to get it together because Casey cannot keep getting beat up, or he's not going to make it to the end of the season. You're right.
I'm surprised
Steele.
he's not hurt right now, honestly, Steele. I am surprised he still has all his limbs intact, because this is a mess. Our line is a mess, and like I said on Saturday, it's not going to get any better. It is what it is. But
yeah. I mean, really, outside of Banks. the Williams kid. God, I'm always blanking on. I want to call him Kevin Williams, but I feel like that's
I
not
want to
his
say
name.
Kevin Williams too.
Maybe it is Kevin. Maybe it is. Okay, because I always and I look it up after. Then I'm like, oh, I'm right. But yeah, I always want to say I'm like, no, that's the guy who used to play in the NFL. But I mean, he's been. I don't know if he's out for the season. So maybe if he came back, but literally besides that, your only option is like Brant Banks, who did a play okay against Indiana. I don't know if he's a long term option, but Turner Corcoran at left tackle is brutal, and I'm not sure what you do there. I
I
mean,
don't know
other than
why. He was a highly rated recruit. I just don't understand why. I really don't. And to think that these guys were the guys that we hung our hat on for the 2020 class, like oof.
think so. Yeah, I'm
Because
blanking a little on that.
I was looking, I think it was 2020 because I was looking and our friend Huskers film breaks down the games, and I was just watching some Casey Thompson throws, and aside from just the throw itself, Corcoran and Anthony were just getting absolutely demolished. They were just
Oh, I
getting
know.
absolutely
Yeah,
destroyed.
I think Hunter Anthony gave up like 5 or 6 pressures, which isn't which in itself is a bad game, but not nearly as bad as. But that God, at least he can get out of his stance, unlike Bryce Bennett, who can't. And so I don't know, man. To me, it looks like Bennett's been hurt, but like I don't know. I'm
So
not
he's been
sure.
hurt since the Oklahoma game. Why are we putting him out here if he's hurt?
Well, I mean, I feel like he's had I mean, if he's not hurt, then the dude shouldn't be playing college football because he looks slow as molasses. But yeah, so
I would say it's the
Corcoran,
latter, honestly. I mean,
yeah,
he is slow. You watch them try to move their feet, and me with my cerebral palsy and my leg braces could probably move faster. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen linemen move their feet so slowly.
and Turner Corcoran. This isn't going to make people feel good, so sorry about this, but yeah, back you're right in the 2020 class. Guess what Turner Corcoran's ranking was? Do you remember, Danny?
In terms of stars, or just in general,
Just overall, his overall
wasn't he the
number.
top player in the state of Nebraska? In the
He
state
of Kansas. He was from Kansas.
in Kansas, yeah.
But he was the number 48 player overall and the 4th ranked offensive tackle.
What does
And
that say about the 2020 offensive tackle class? Like, I wonder where the other 3 ended up.
yeah, let's see. It's hard because I mean it is hard to evaluate, offensive tackles, but let's see. The other ones were Paris Johnson from Ohio State, and he's pretty good. Broderick Jones at Georgia. I don't know much about him really. Tate Ratledge from Georgia or went to Georgia. So Andrew Gentry went to Michigan, and he doesn't play at all. I think I don't
Maybe
even
that was
think he
just a
plays
weak
football
class.
anymore. Yeah, there's not a lot of great looking tackles in this class. Like just scrolling through, there's no names that I really know a lot. So we'll see, I guess. But
Also,
yeah,
shout out to Greg Austin for helping create this absolute mess. He
yeah.
did he did the Nebraska offensive line 0 favors, and
I don't know that Donovan Raiola's done a whole lot either.
he hasn't. But I can't put this all on him either. That's
But
not
then
to
it's
say
like,
I'm being a rookie.
would he even have the job if his last name wasn't Raiola?
No, because it was a ploy to get his nephew to try to come here, and his nephew just basically laughed in our faces, and I don't blame him. But
Well, he laughed in our faces because the Raiolas had a meet and greet all set up and planned, and Scott was supposed to go there and then got too drunk and tried to do a Zoom meeting with the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country because our old head coach couldn't get his shit together to actually, meet with a 5-star quarterback.
he
So
he wouldn't have come here anyway. I don't think he would
no,
come
probably
here.
not.
No,
Probably
but you're
not.
right. You're right. I mean,
But he's definitely not. But he definitely wasn't going to come after that. You know what I mean? Like if you're Nebraska and you can't even show the kids some respect, like I don't think he even heard the name Nebraska after that. And sure, I know that's totally rumor and conjecture, like whatever, that's not sourced and reported. I know that, but there's enough smoke that there's some fire to it. Okay, people, like Scott Frost was kind of a piece of crap. I mean, let's just say it what it is. During his time, he was not a good person when he was the Nebraska head football coach, and his performance on the field showed that.
and now the rest of the coaching staff is suffering for it, particularly the offensive line. I mean, I'll be interested to see if Mickey is retained, if he brings Raiola back, or if he tries to get like an actual offensive. I didn't want to say actual offensive line coach, but I mean one that's more stable, I guess you could say.
They need to go. Like Michigan had this guy Ed Warner, and he coached at like Ohio State, Notre Dame, and I think he was like an old school, like a Dante Scarnecchia type, like
I love
he,
Skarnecki up here in New England.
yeah.
We love him.
They need somebody like that. I don't, you want a coach who can recruit, but the thing is Nebraska. I mean, they are getting some top guys, but most of their offensive line guys aren't going to be the top 100 types. So like they really need to go find a guy that can develop players at as an offensive line coach. And I'm not sure if Rayola is going to be that, but we'll see. I mean, in the 2024 class, they're really, they've offered like 2 top 100 tackles that, out in California that seems like they have no shot to get. So it's like, they've offered some Nebraska kids too, but that seems more like it's Mickey than it is Rail. So I don't know, man.
I feel like it's a lot of Mickey and a lot of Bill Bush.
Yeah.
I know Bush has done a lot in Missouri, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll pick up some more, talent in the transfer portal on the line, but if it's not clear that it needs to be addressed, then I don't know how much clearer we can make it. I think honestly, if it's not clear by now, Casey Thompson's going to have to leave on a stretcher before they're like, hey, let's try to fix up this position.
Yeah, like they need someone at almost every position. I mean, not saying that there's not guys who can't start next year, but you need better depth. I mean, because right now it's like Nebraska's stuck with where they are because they didn't go and try to get more depth options in the transfer portal. So there's not. I mean, there's just nobody there. They grabbed a couple tackles, but there were better players out there, and maybe they did try to get him, and it just didn't work out. But
I think we were betting on guys like Corcoran and Ben Hart, and those bets have not paid off.
And Prajaka. I mean, if Teddy Prajaka had not gotten hurt, I mean, when he did play, he was terrible. I get that, but I don't think he was ever healthy. I just don't think it ever, So that was a big blow, and then losing the left guard. I mean, that was another blow, and then on top of that, having both Ben Hart and Corcoran just be total flops. I mean, total flops has just killed the offensive line because if those were 2 4-star guys, if those guys are hits and Prajaka's a hit, then from there you got a pretty good offensive line. You can fill it, you can get by with, like 1 or 2 average players. But when your 3 top recruits are supposed to be your stars, one of them is hurt and the other 2 just can't deliver, I mean, it doesn't bode well.
No, and it sets up for a situation where you almost have to kind of rush to recruit and not take the time to properly evaluate and develop, and that's not a good situation either.
Yeah, and it's we'll see. Hopefully we'll get some good recruiting news here. The class hasn't fallen apart yet, the 2023 class, which I think is mostly because of Mickey, and we'll see.
I'm surprised about that too, honestly, that we haven't seen more names decommit.
But yeah, Hayden Moore and Riley Van Popper are the 2 ones I'm watching for decommitments in terms of because I know other schools are starting to look and push for them, especially Van Popper. I'm pretty sure was offered by Texas A&M. So we'll see it. We'll see how it goes. But like you said on Saturday, winning always helps, and I definitely think the win helped. With Malachi Coleman, he tweeted his photo out with
I was just about to ask you that. What do you think of that photo?
Joseph. I think it's just another hint. I wrote about it on Saturday. I think it's just another hint. I think it's him basically saying, he likes the momentum that Nebraska has. And I think that Nebraska has a right to feel confident. It just doesn't seem like there's another realistic threat here. I mean, I know there's other teams that are in programs that are recruiting him, but it just doesn't seem like any other school has emerged as like that's the one you have to watch for Malachi Coleman. I don't feel like there's one of those out there.
I think it's kind of interesting that we have 2 bye weeks coming up on October 22nd, and we had one after the Oklahoma game, and that bye week coming up is going to be useful as I head into that November stretch, and hopefully we'll have some good news on that bye week.
Hopefully that's supposed to be the date. And if Malachi, shuts it down at that point, like he says he's going to, and I think that's going to kind of depend on what happens with Mickey. If I could see him committing, and I think he's going to be pretty sold, except if, there's a new head coach, then I think it's going to depend partially if Mickey Joseph is on staff. And so, which either way, I think it bodes well for Mickey being at Nebraska long term, whether it's as the head coach or the associate head coach or whatever. But if he keeps winning, if we beat Purdue on Saturday, then it's going to keep trending in the direction of permanent head coach and not not coming back as the wide receivers coach and associate head coach next year.
Absolutely, and I think on Saturday we're going to do a stream on our YouTube channel, on this YouTube channel here. So I'm excited for that. You're going to probably see me raw and uncensored. So get ready. It's going to be a wild time. I know. We've done a couple streams before, but it's going to be a lot more fun when we're winning and when we've won. So.
Yeah, it will be another fun day on Saturday. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to plan on doing our stream on Saturday. We will have another episode coming up this week, either Wednesday or Thursday, with our keys and our predictions for Rutgers against Purdue. So I guess we'll wrap it up here. It's about 7 o'clock. So thanks again for joining everybody here for our Monday morning takeaways after Nebraska got a big win over Rutgers, their second in a row. Make sure that you are checking out both of our sites for some great Nebraska content. You can find my stuff over at huskerbigred.com to read everything that Danny's got about the Huskers. Check out greatcornholio.org. We'll also have this a podcast episode, so you can find our podcast at Apple or Spotify. So make sure you subscribe there, and give us a 5-star rating so it's easier for other Husker fans to find us. And then, as always, make sure that you're subscribing to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our Nebraska content. We put out 2-3 videos a week about the Huskers. So if you're a hardcore Nebraska fan, this YouTube channel is definitely for you. So like this video, comment, and as always, guys, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.